Skyrim, the 10th game in the Elder Scrolls series, 5th main titled Elder Scrolls game taking place 200 years after Oblivion. Last time I asked the question, what if Skyrim was good? I addressed basic mechanics, such as all the factions in the game. If you're just catching this series for the first time, I recommend going back to my What If Oblivion Was Good, followed by part 1 of Skyrim. Now once again, I have to remind you all that this is subjective fan fiction because it's never going to happen. And for the rest of you who haven't been scared off so far, let's get going. Now, starting out Skyrim, we were introduced to the game via a cart scene, where we were actually able to look around. This is important because the cart scene set the tone for the game. And it was a shitty tone, I'm sorry. I understand what the developers were going for. They were trying to show off this snowy land, this harsh environment, these prisoners that were around you. They were all trying to set the stage for the game, and it freaking failed. So we're going to replace that scene with a cinematic sweeping down the mountain really quickly within a couple seconds into a window of Helgen Keep. You're going to wake up in a jail cell filled with Nord prisoners. We're talking about like a wide jail cell. The first thing you hear after you wake up is, "I've almost got them off," the horse thief says to Rolf as he gets Rolf's manacles off. So at this point, you only see Rolf and the horse thief with their manacles off. Everyone else is still bound. Rolf will walk right up to you and say, "You are unlucky to get caught up in this mess, friend. Where are you from?" And that will open up the character creation dialogue where you'll be able to create your character fully. And he'll make a token remark about your race, nothing big. And as soon as he does that, the horse thief says, "Quiet, here comes the guard." And Rolf and the horse thief both pretend to have their arms behind their backs as if they were bound. Now a man is going to be escorted by Imperial guards past the cell into another room. He's going to be escorted very slowly, giving you plenty of time to figure out who he is. The man is wearing prisoner's rags, and he has an iron helmet hiding his face. There's going to be a pole running along his shoulders that basically his arms are bound to. So he's tied up to this pole, and then there's this helmet attached to it, so he can't see, he can't speak, he can't do shit. He can't even move his arms. The purpose of this slow escort is so that we can figure out who Ulfric Stormcloak is. First of all, we need to show off the difference between this guy and how you're being treated. You're all just put in a cell together. Ulfric Stormcloak, on the other hand, is a serious threat, and he's being taken seriously. The horse thief's gonna ask, "What's with the helmet?" And one of the Nords is gonna shout, "That's Ulfric Stormcloak." The horse thief is gonna ask, "Leader of the Stormcloaks?" And Rolf is going to interject with, "True High King of Skyrim and heir to the Empire of Tamriel." The horse thief will go, "Wait, what? He doesn't look like an Imperial to me." Looking all like awkward and stuff. Then some other Nord will say, "Not that Empire. They say Ulfric's got the dragon blood in his veins." So someone else is going to be like, "Well, I thought the Septums were all wiped out." "That's Uriel Septum's line, boy. Old Tiber Septum used to be Talos of Etmora. Ulfric's from that line." That exposition takes just long enough for Ulfric to disappear out of sight. The topic's done then. We've just established Ulfric's right to rule not only Skyrim, but the freaking Empire. This leaves us with a lot of unspoken questions, the main one being, if there was a Septum branch family, why wouldn't they have spoken up until now? And we're not going to address that right now, but we're going to keep that in the back of our minds for later. That exposition was just enough for us to get the fact that there's hope for the Empire in this savage era, even though we're all prisoners and we're all going to freaking die. Now a group of Imperial soldiers comes out with their blades ready. They basically get escorted out to the execution grounds, and Ulfric's going to already be out there. Now we're going to be upgrading Hadvar's status. He's going to be General Tullius's personal auxiliary. What does that mean? He's actually in charge of relations with Whiterun. You see, Hadvar, having lived in Riverwood to begin with, was the ideal candidate to basically restore relations with the Jarl of Whiterun. He's kind of like a liaison between all the local commanders and General Tullius. He's the go-to errand boy, basically. The guy who you became in the vanilla game. Hadvar's taking on that role. So the Stormcloaks are going to line up to get executed, and you're last in line. You get up there, and he goes, "You there, wait. You're not on the list. You notice the way he doesn't address the commander going, "Captain, he's not on the list." He doesn't say that. He just makes it a statement as a matter of fact. Now give me a second to explain the sequence really quick. It's going to take a long time to explain because it's going to be on a per race basis basically. What we're doing here is we're customizing the player experience based on the race they picked. If you pick a Nord, which would be the default race, the commander will interject saying, "Forget the list." He goes to the block, at which point Hadvar will reply, "General Tullius's orders, we need to secure relations with Whiterun. Executing an innocent could sour our relationship. I'll take responsibility. Guards, take him/her back to the cell." And so that's that. Now, if you're a High Elf, Wood Elf, or Khajiit, we can't afford an incident with the Aldmeri Dominion now. And then he'll, instead of talking to the commander of the guards, he'll turn to you and say, "You'll be our guest until we can get someone from the Thalmor embassy out here to check out the situation. If the embassy doesn't vouch for you, you're gonna die anyway." They're basically just covering their bases at that point. So what we've done so far is we've changed the way the character player is treated to reflect the current political climate, because this is a military execution and it needs to be handled properly. You notice that inane commander is still there. She tried to send you to the block, but Hadvar, having a place of power, basically, being Tullius's personal go-to guy, he's overruling the commander in this situation. So there'll be similar lines for Bretons or Imperials, but as for Argonians, Dark Elves, and Red Guards, they are just going to be straight up taken to the block. Hadvar ain't going to save your neck because he has no reason to. The Dark Elf nation is gone, has no power. The few Dark Elves that remain have sided with the Stormcloaks, if you remember the previous episode. Dark Elves are being heavily discriminated against in Imperial areas. Again, the reverse of vanilla Skyrim. So a quick recap. The Great Houses of Morrowind, buried in ash, killed by Argonians. Basically, the old Empire of Morrowind is gone. The living gods are no more. All we've got left is one or two houses that had to put aside their distrust for the Nords, their hatred for the Nords, in order to flat out survive. These refugees have built their own nation in Skyrim. Any more information, refer back to the previous episode. And because they've sided with the Stormcloaks, the Empire treats them like crap. Of course, the Empire neglecting them in their time of need was what started this whole mess in the first place. Now Argonians, since Argonia seceded from the Empire, they're basically doing their own thing in Blackmarsh. Nobody gives a crap about them. They're treated like second-class citizens because they have no political relations with the Empire anymore. And finally, Red Guards. Although the Empire did willingly release Hammerfell from the Empire in order to basically save it from the Thalmor, they don't have any official standing with the Empire. They aren't treated like valued allies at all. So they're, again, treated like crap. So these three races, they're going straight to the block. So you'll either be marched back toward the keep, or you'll be taken directly to the chopping block ahead of everybody else. If you're going to be executed, Rolf is going to say, "That race name isn't a part of the Stormcloaks," and the Imperials will basically ignore him. But Rolf tried to save your life, If you are being marched away, the ground's going to shake, camera's going to pan up, you're going to see a dragon land on the keep just like before, he's going to breathe, cause all kinds of hell. Likewise, if you're being executed, same way, your head's going to be to the side, you're going to see the dragon. It's all going to happen just the same way it did. But you'll notice that is a regular dragon. It is not Alduin. We're saving Alduin for later. So regardless of which situation you're in, you're going to witness a whole squad of Imperials basically just get breathed on. And they're going to go ragdolling all over the place. I mean, like smashing into the walls and stuff like that. They're just going to fall down dead, basically. And this is going to give you the idea that if you don't get out of here, you're going to die. So you're going to get up. You're going to run to the open tower because that's the closest place that's open at the time. It's going to be a larger tower because inside you're going to see the Imperial commander wounded. You're going to see Hadvar, Rolf, and Ulfric Stormcloak still in chains. This is important. Rolf is going to tell you to get an axe and basically chop the chains off of Ulfric's back. Hadvar is immediately going to reply, "Are you crazy? We have to get out of here. Follow me, and if you want to survive this." And he basically helps the wounded Imperial commander just kind of limp away. So what'll happen is you'll have an axe you can pick up off the wall, equip, and hit Ulfric's chains off with, or you can go with Hadvar. Either way, the door's going to close shut behind you, so you won't be able to choose another option. It's basically either Imperials or Stormcloaks early on. And we're going to make your choice a core part of the game experience. Now, assuming you chopped Ulfric with the axe, the door will slam shut, the Imperial Commander and Hadvar will be gone. Ulfric will take his helmet off, ungag himself. He'll tell you, "Thank you, brother," and then he will immediately charge out of the keep and attack the dragon. This is a somewhat faster route to the dragon fight. However, if you're going inside of Helgen Keep, the keep is going to be shaking, parts of it are going to be collapsing, and we're going to notice that like the dragon's gonna bust through the wall and breathe fire. Same thing it did in the tower before, but this time it's actually gonna be tearing down the keep in real time. Skyrim, you need a new engine for this, obviously, but we are operating under, obviously, no engine limitations and an idealized version of the game. So we're basically throwing any of those engine limitations out the window, and we're going to say what could ideally happen is that the keep would start crumbling around you, and you'll just have to run as not to get breathed on, as this dragon is basically destroying the keep behind you. Sections are collapsing. It's hectic. Now, regardless of which side you chose, you come out to this courtyard, and there's going to be some rubble in the middle that stops you from getting to the other side of the courtyard. You're going to be able to see through the rubble because it's kind of like wire fencing and crap, you know. What you're going to see is Ulfric Stormcloak Fusrada the dragon out of the sky. It smashes into the tower on his side. He goes and he kills it quickly with his sword. There's going to be no flashy effects, no special skin decaying, no dragon skeleton, none of that. It's just going to be one dead dragon. At which point, you're basically going to hear exposition from your side of the fence. It's either going to be Hadvar or it's going to be Rolf. And they're both going to say, "That's Ulfric Stormcloak. They call him the Dragonborn." And here's where we break this off. Last of Tiber Septim's bloodline is what Hadvar is going to say. And Rolf is going to say, "The last son of Talos." And so Hadvar is going to talk about how Ulfric Stormcloak went crazy, gathered up his Imperials. Hundreds of people lost their lives because of his insane rebellion. He has to be stopped. That's Hadvar's side. Now, Rolf is going to tell you about how Talos worship was outlawed and how the Nordic culture is being stripped away for imperial values, and how there's no true Nord that actually respects the Imperials anymore, and how they basically forfeited the loyalty of the Nord people when they turned their back on Nordic values and basically told the Nords, "You can't worship Ysmir anymore." At which point, everything went out the window. Now, regardless of which side you picked, you'll see the other one exit through the door and disappear, leaving you to get out of the keep yourself. And that will lead you into the keep through a winding tunnel, which will go out to the back of the keep. You'll notice that there's no dragon flying away. That's right, we've removed that agency. And the reason is because we want you to go to Riverwood, we want you to explore. Either Rolf or Hadvar will act as your guide to basically getting used to Riverwood and understanding the mechanics. This kind of agency won't occur until later. The idea is, if you want to just be an adventurer and explore, you just assume that one dragon is dead, and that's all there is to it. There isn't another dragon going around somewhere. So regardless of which side you picked, Ulfric Stormcloak escaped, and the Imperial Commander blames you for it. Yes, indeed. So this Imperial Commander is going to be seen later. She's going to be a recurring thread. You're not going to like her regardless of which side you picked, and she will have a fitting death later. But the reason we built it up this way is to have some decent story threads running through the game. Unfortunately, having everything just wrapped up in a neat little bow in order for you to be able to move on to your life of adventure is rather boring. There should always be currents of story running over your head, and that's the plan for this. Now, once you get to Riverwood, you basically go wherever the hell you want, do whatever you want, but there's some pretty major differences. Obviously, Riverwood being bigger, as we established in the previous episode, has a wall around it. It's probably the logging area. They cut down trees, they cut them up at the lumber mill, and then they let those logs go downstream to Whiterun, where they're picked up at a different logging mill, where they're processed and pulped, and basically that's where the paper in Skyrim comes from, is from Whiterun Hold. And so we've already built some infrastructure right there. So moving along to Whiterun Hold, you're basically going to warn about a dragon attack at Helgen, and the guards laugh at you. Seriously. There's no talk about dragons about, none of that. Literally just the guards laugh at you. And you're allowed in the main city because everyone is, but if you try to go to the Cloud District and warn them about dragons, you'll have an option to persuade them using the persuasion skill. It should be like an 80 skill check because no one's going to believe that there's a dragon around. Dragons have been in hiding for God knows how long. The last one seen right before the Oblivion crisis. So no, nobody believes you that there's dragons around. We're going back to either Solitude or Windhelm, depending on which side you chose in the beginning. Because remember, Hadvar or Rolf are your go-to people now. And they're going to remind you while you're in Riverwood to basically come see us. And you'll notice that in the beginning, you don't even have to join the Stormcloaks or the Imperials or deal with any dragons whatsoever. But you made that choice to help them in the beginning. It's an element of the story. You are not automatically a member of either faction, but you do have a reputation with them as a result of your actions. So you either meet up with Hadvar in Solitude, or you'll meet up with Rolf in Windhelm, and it's not time to join either faction yet. I can't impress that upon you anymore. Instead, Hadvar or Rolf are basically going to use you as a neutral third party to basically say, hey, Jarl of Whiterun, we want your attention. So you're going to hand deliver a letter from either Ulfric Stormcloak or General Tullius. And it's basically going to say, hey, there was a dragon. Hey, Helgen got destroyed. Hey, I think you should protect Riverwood because there really is a dragon. You'll notice that they don't believe a random adventurer. They believe the word of the supreme commander of one of the major factions. So this is going to be your into the Cloud District. Until you've basically got this letter in hand, they aren't going to let you up there in Dragon's Reach. You're nobody. And you could just be an assassin for all they know. So that's how it works. That's your in to Dragon's Reach. At which point you help Farngar with his quest. You do all the basic things. And then a dragon attacks the watchtower and you kill it. And when you kill it, you absorb its soul. But the dragon does not magically turn to bones. There is no evidence externally that you have devoured its soul. You get a vision, a cutscene more or less, of some stuff from the Dragon War. And this dragon that you killed, but they don't go, no way, you're Dragonborn. They don't see that. They don't know that. Simply put, you are an adventurer who helped them kill a dragon. They sent you there because you had the most knowledge of dragons, having seen one at Helgen before, and really it just made the most sense to send you because you were disposable. If you died, they wouldn't care. Now, what happens after you manage to kill the dragon, your shout window is going to be unlocked. You are going to gain the ability to use Foos. The game is going to artificially prompt you to do so, and if you choose to, then the guards will say, you're Dragonborn. But until those guards see you shout, as far as they're concerned, you're not the Dragonborn. Now, what we're going to have is like Oblivion previously had, fame and notoriety stats for your character. You're going to have the same thing with this. As people hear you shout, and as you do more things like that, you're going to gain a reputation as the Dragonborn. This is going to come in the form of notoriety. You're going to become notorious as the Dragonborn, because people are going to start fearing you. They're going to be confused because they thought Ulfric was the Dragonborn. Indeed, people are going to have a negative reputation towards you if you go around shouting in front of them. That notoriety will build up. Likewise, when you complete quests and do adventures and things like that, you're going to build up a fame stat. And the idea, as long as the fame and notoriety are both pretty well equal, people are going to revere you and believe you are the real Dragonborn. But this system is important because in the vanilla game only had 3 states. They hate you, they're neutral, or they like you. That's it. That's pretty much the relationship status in Skyrim. It was dumbed down. So what we're going to do is we're going to have basically 5 or 6 states of how much they like you, and it's going to be, the predisposition isn't going to be neutral. It's going to be influenced by your notoriety versus fame stat. The higher your fame is, the higher the chance for them to like you already. And the higher, if your notoriety exceeds your fame, then the less likely they are to like you. This is your general reputation in the land of Skyrim. Now the idea is you already gained 1 point of fame for having completed Bleak Falls Barrow, you gained another point of fame for having killed the dragon, and then you continue to build fame based on all your quests. If you went off and did a bunch of random quests, then you're a well-known adventurer already. When they see you shout, there's no notoriety, they're not scared of you, like, you really must be the Dragonborn. What's up with Ulfric, you know? You will be summoned by the Greybeards, just the same as any, and that will, once again, raise your notoriety. Because you'll be known as, this guy, he was summoned by the Greybeards, holy crap. You know, what do we make of this guy? Because, remember, the Greybeards aren't instantly revered here. They're kind of feared by some people, and they're liked by others. They're well known. But nobody know, like when the Greybeards just shout, Dovahkiin! And you realize that you're being summoned because you just shouted in front of the guards. You've got to go see them. There's no other way. So at this point, after the dragon's been dead, and you are declared Thane of Whiterun, you can do whatever you want again. If you decide to go back to either Windhelm or Solitude, you can basically say, hey, I'm in. I'm the 3rd Thane of Whiterun. I'm allowed in the Cloud District whenever I want. What do you guys want to do for me? And you can join up with the Imperial Legion or the Stormcloaks as a special agent for them, basically influencing Whiterun. It's an alternate take on the Civil War, basically. So before you can just go and beat up enemies in their forts, you work on buttering up the Jarl of Whiterun, basically building your reputation with him. And reputation is, again, a very important part of this version of Skyrim, because getting people to like you means that you can progress in the quest. Getting people to hate you means, well, you have to find alternate ways to do things. And I'm not saying there can't be alternate ways to do things. So basically, with the assistance of the great General Tullius or Ulfric Stormcloak, you've managed to get into the Cloud District. You've managed to save the city, and as a result be named the 3rd Thane of Whiterun, keeping in mind that 1st Thane belongs to Codlac, and the 2nd Thane will be like the Jarl's cousin or something. Blood is thicker than heroism. It's at this point, now that you're the Thane of Whiterun, where you can go to either faction and say, hey, either I've done what you've asked, let's go ahead and take the battle to the enemy, or, hey, I'm sorry I chose that other guy back then, but hey, I'm Thane of Whiterun now, I've seen some crazy shit, I've killed a dragon, and I'm going to join you. So yeah, you may have some trouble proving yourself, but it can be done. You aren't locked into a single choice, it's just that the previous choice will make it easier or harder to have the faction that you want. Once you join either the Imperial Cult or the Temple of the Old Kingdom, you are likewise locked into either the Imperial Legion or the Stormcloaks. They're completely separate organizations, but they are tied to each other regardless, because this is a religious civil war, where literally you have the Imperial Cult fighting to bring the new religion in, and the Imperial Legion being their messengers, so to speak, and their enforcers. And then the Temple of the Old Kingdom desperately trying to preserve the old Nord culture, and the Stormcloaks being the soldiers, being the messengers, being the enforcers of that will. So these two directly opposed ideologies end up becoming the foundation for either side, although you don't have to engage in the religious aspects of it if you don't want to. They are more or less a bonus faction, but they still have to be joined separately. The Temple of Junal still remains the neutral mage faction for all of the above, and is tied directly to the College of Winterhold, the college access being gated off to higher levels of the Temple of Junal. Now, the Greybeards will make no mention of Akatosh whatsoever. The Greybeards are of the old religion. As a result, the concept of the blood of Akatosh is given to the Dragonborn. Nope. So we're defining the Greybeards by the Temple of the Old Kingdom standards. So Shor and Kine, basically their powers came to give you the dragon blood. The idea is that you having the dragon blood makes you the next Ysmir. You're the next incarnation of Ysmir in their minds. Whether you are in fact Ysmir or not, you have gained the title of Ysmir. However, there is a great distinction between Ysmir the god and you. Ysmir being Talos, the divine that has been outlawed by the White Gold Concordat. So this is serious business because you are, for all intents and purposes, the next Talos, the next Tiber Septim. You have the title of Ysmir, and as a result, you should be worshipped as Ysmir. They kneel before you. They are actually your humble servants. You now have a home at High Hrothgar. Basically, the idea is that you are the anti-Alduin. You notice that the concept of Akatosh doesn't enter into their religion at all, because the dragon of their religion is Alduin, and that guy is, we don't like him very much. You know, there are reasons, later reasons, involving Paarthurnax that we'll get into at some point. You were sent to get a tool that will help you to unlock the true nature of your voice. You have to get the Horn of Jorgen Windcaller. It's not because of it's a test or anything like that. It's because the horn is actually a tool that's going to help you to shape and tone your voice and create new words. Yes, although the shout menu has been unlocked, you don't have the ability to create new shouts by mixing words together yet. That will happen when you get the Horn of Jorgen Windcaller. And when you go there, Delphine stole it, you get to Riverwood, you do the whole thing. She basically takes you, makes sure that you're Dragonborn. When she finds out you're Dragonborn, she, instead of going like, oh, we gotta infiltrate the Thalmor embassy, no. Oh, we gotta find Esbern, nope. She takes you directly to Sky Ruler Temple. Literally, that is your first place to journey after she's sure you're Dragonborn, because Esbern's there, as well as a handful of other blades. The idea is that their order isn't crumbling. The first thing they did, as soon as they wanted to hide from the Thalmor, is they went to this temple that no one remembered, and that's damned hard to get to, and they basically said, hey, this is our place now, and we're gonna train, and they rebuilt. And now they're getting ready to strike back at the Thalmor here in Skyrim, and they're getting ready, but they need the Dragonborn because they knew the dragons were actually coming back. Esbern figured it all out. He deciphered Alduin's Wall a long time ago, and he's ready to impart the prophecy on you as soon as you get there. Basically, you're the next Raymond Cyrodiil. You're in the next Tiber Septim. We've served your predecessors this whole time. Now we're here to serve you and make sure that you become the next emperor. Not Ulfric Stormcloak and not Titus Mead. So in other words, the Blades are a new third faction. And it's important to know why the Blades and the Imperials, or the Blades and the Stormcloaks, never cross over. The reason is because they are seeking the radical overthrow of the Mead Empire. Their hatred of dragons, our pride as the Blades demand that Paarthurnax die. No. They will use dragons as necessary. They're using the Dragonborn, they'll use dragons, they'll use anything they can get to reclaim their place as the Imperial bodyguards, the true power of Tamriel. That's basically what they want. They want a return to the Third Era. And in order to do that, they need you to defeat Alduin, to gain supremacy over the dragons, and more or less take your place on the throne, toppling the new empire. Of course, the Thalmor are an obstacle to this, because you can't make war on the Empire without the Thalmor intervening and more or less breaking everything down, so the Aldmeri Dominion needs to be taken care of as well. In other words, it's a shit show. And it's at Alduin's Wall that we first learn the name of our enemy. We've never seen Alduin before up to this point. Remember, it was a random dragon in Helgen who got killed by Ulfric. It was a random dragon in Whiterun who got killed by you. But you're Dragonborn, and they're pretty sure that Ulfric isn't, despite the fact that all the people are declaring Ulfric the Dragonborn. Ulfric has dragon blood. He is. He is a true descendant of the mortal Talos, but he's not Dragonborn. You are. Probably a Shezarene on top of that. And as a result, they want to set your destiny up for you. The Empire wants to use you. The Stormcloaks, they want to use you. To prop up either their Imperial cult or their Temple of the Old Kingdom, prop up Ulfric Stormcloak as ruler, prop up Elisif as the High Queen of Skyrim. All these people want to use you. The Blades are the only people legitimately on your side, and the Greybeards. What ends up happening is the Blades and the Greybeards basically get together. So now the Dragonborn has two organizations serving them. One that is dedicated to improving his Thu'um and his relationship with the dragons, that is the Greybeards, and the other faction is the Blades, who are determined to get him more political power and crush the Thalmor. They're the anti-Thalmor faction. Now, if you already became a Thalmor agent and you decide to do the Blades quests, you could compromise your position within the Thalmor. It's not mutually exclusive, but one will hurt the other, period. So yes, we are maintaining the power fantasy of Skyrim. That is ingrained in it, in you being the Dragonborn. But what we've done is we've basically given a reason for this power fantasy to exist. You can either be a nobody and not do these things, these main quest things, or if you do the main quest things, you're going to notice a gradual ramp up to you gaining power and prominence. And leadership of these guilds is recognized. Because ultimately, as you progress through the Blades quest line, which has become the main quest of the game, you will end up going toe-to-toe with Alduin. Now, about halfway through the main quest, so after you've been proclaimed Dragonborn by the Greybeards, you have been to Alduin's Wall, that's when the sleepers will start waking up. I'm talking about a parallel with the 6th House Dreamers, who Dagoth spoke to in their sleep. We're bringing that back in the form of the dragon cult. You see, what ended up happening is the Temple of the Old Kingdom has Alduin as its dragon deity. The people, traditionally, Alduin is not meant to be worshipped, but rather placated. When you pray to Alduin, you're basically saying, please don't eat me, big dragon. Don't let misfortune befall me. That's basically what you're asking. And what ends up happening is there's a few people who are genuinely worshiping Alduin, not just placating him, but actually offering up their loyalty to him. And those people are hearing Alduin's voice speaking to them in their dreams. Alduin is exerting mental control over his followers. You see, what we're doing is we're taking that Merak stuff from Solstheim, from the Dragonborn expansion pack, and we're applying it to Skyrim's main quest. People in their dreams, they're sleepwalking, and they're rebuilding the dragon mounds and stuff. Like, all these dragon temples that were in disrepair are actually getting rebuilt by Alduin's will through the people of Skyrim. And it's not through these mystical stones all across the landscape. Instead, it's from all the Alduin shrines in each of the temples. The Alduin shrines are like conduits for Alduin's power, where it's basically seeping into people's heads and making them do stuff. Now, we're going to do more quests centered around disrupting this very active now dragon cult. And it turns out that the dragon priests aren't just these people hiding in coffins ready to float around. They actually talk. And they communicate with their followers, they command people. There are dungeons entirely devoted to killing a specific dragon priest, because that dragon priest is starting up no good. You know, 2 of the people in Whiterun have disappeared. Turns out they went up and joined the dragon cult. You see, so dragons are kind of a thing where every once in a while you'll find a dragon's den full of treasure and stuff like that. But for the most part, you're dealing with humans. Not bandits, but rather dragon cult members. Those bandits, they got killed. They got replaced with dragon cultists. And it gets kind of serious toward the late game, because the further you go in the main quest, the more the dragon cult's influence spreads. And if you think killing Alduin's just going to resolve the situation, that's where Dragonborn comes in, because Merak is going to take Alduin's place And he's not just going to be confined to this little island of Solstheim. No, his mass consciousness is going to go everywhere. So it's going to be serious business. But going back to the main quest now. As you kill these different dragon priests, it turns out that their masks are made out of Alduin's power, more or less. Somewhat like in Battlespire, the way you had to have a weapon made out of Mehrunes Dagon's power in order to sever his connection with the world and basically kill him. You'll have to do something similar with the Dragon Priest masks. Like, you'll take them to the Skyforge. Yes, we're going to make the Skyforge useful. Only the Skyforge can melt down these Dragon Priest masks and make them into a suitable weapon with which to basically mortally wound Alduin. And, we're told basically early on that even if we kill Alduin, he won't stay dead because he's a god. He's just, you kill his mortal incarnation and he's gone for a few hundred years. So, but as Dragonborn, it might be possible for you to devour his soul. It might not, we don't know. Alduin has never incarnated early. We've beaten Mehrunes Dagon and Molag Bal before, but this guy is nothing like them. So the question is are we going to be able to actually banish him? Are we going to be able to kill him? And for that, we need to know the lore of the ancient Nords. We need to know what happened back then. So you're sent to go deal with Parthenax. And Parthenax will tell you what little he knows, but he wasn't there for the final battle. That information was inscribed upon the Dragon Stones. You gotta go there, you gotta get them, you gotta understand. There's no Deus Ex Machina Elder Scroll, okay? What happened is Alduin was beaten by a Dragonborn, he was more or less ripped apart, and yet his pieces were drawn back into each other, and he revived. So this is kind of serious business, because no matter how many times you kill Alduin, he's always going to come back. How they dealt with Alduin the last time is they basically used high magic in order to more or less cast him out of Mundus, to send him to Aetherius. This was done by using a Metella, basically this all-powerful gem that was created from the soul of a Shezarene. If you remember, this happened in Daggerfall. You see, in Daggerfall, Great Numidium was powered by a Metella as well. And the Metella allowed the Manny Marco to ascend as the god of worms. All this stuff happened in the past. Now we're basically saying, hey, there was another Metella. It was made from a former Shezarene. You can ask him what a Shezarene is. We can basically break that bit of lore into the game properly. And the reason for this is because using an Elder Scroll to magically send people into a different time, that's Deus Ex Machina bullshit. That's not the way Elder Scrolls work. We know that. Elder Scrolls are to be read and understood, to gain lore from them. At the absolute most, an Elder Scroll can be used to dispel illusions because they shine through to the absolute truth. The case being the Grey Fox having his curse lifted. That illusion placed upon him by Nocturnal was ended. But in terms of sending someone to the future, that's not the way Elder Scrolls work. So again, using the Metella is how it happened. Where are we going to find this? So we have to find the tomb of the 3 Nords who beat Alduin the first time, and basically find clues to lead us to this Metella. And once we do, we find out it's in Sovngarde. Literally. The Metella was sent to Aetherius. Kind of like the one in Daggerfall, right? Exactly. And unlike the one in Daggerfall, the Totem of Tiber Septim isn't around to call it forth. So there is literally no way to get at it, except for a path to Aetherius. It exists. And this leads us to go to Sovngarde. So we get to Sovngarde. Sovngarde is huge, okay? I mean, the idea behind Sovngarde is that it should be about 20 times larger than it is. I mean, literally, let's say that the player can access 5% of it. The player can mostly go on the main road. Well, there should be, just in the distance, landscape beyond, as far as we can see, because that is the afterlife of the Nords. The Mead Hall should be the size of Whiterun, the Whalebone Bridge, where a god stands guard. this should all be serious business, okay? We're meeting the gods, and every single thing about this should say, glorious! When you get to the Guardian of Trials, basically this god, he is gigantic. You are barely the size of his foot. And what he does is he basically snaps his finger, makes a smaller version of himself that you fight. He summons an incarnation. And that incarnation is still in Sovngarde. It's kind of a weird situation, but basically, you are realizing you're just fighting one of his aspects. When you beat him, one of the options is, why can't you beat Alduin? Because, that's a legitimate question. And the answer is that Alduin would simply devour him, as Alduin would devour all things. If Alduin existed in this world in this form, then he could be killed by one of the Dead World's gods. But as it stands, basically you are the only thing. So going to the Great Mead Hall, you will see a ridiculous number of people in it. All Nord warriors who died, even if it's just their shadows, even if they don't have names, even if you can't interact with them, you will be able to see them. And that's important to know, that their afterlife isn't just some stupid little prefabricated hall that there's nobody in. Now, when you get to Shor's throne, an aspect of Shor will meet you there. You can ask for the Metella, and he'll give you the Metella. But either way, Shor will not interfere in this battle. This is a battle for those who are living, and Shor is just here to look after Sovngarde. Those in the Mead Hall are safe. Those wandering around in the mists have not accepted Shor properly, and therefore are not under his protection. If Alduin were to venture into the Mead Hall, then Shor would kill him, but Alduin wouldn't dare do such a thing, so that's pretty much it. You're given the Metella and allowed to go outside and fight Alduin. So you fight Alduin, and his wounds are able to heal. And he basically has kind of a god mode on. How can you kill a god? What a grand and intoxicating innocence. How could you be so naive? Because it turns out he's absorbing the souls of random people. Anytime you hurt him, you'll see this little string of mist come in and basically go to the spot where you hit him on. So it will heal him up. So you have to use the Metella to create a portal and trick Alduin into dive bombing you. And when Alduin dives at you, he will, you get out of the way, he smacks into the portal, you both get teleported back to the throat of the world, where you have to use Dragon Rend on Alduin, because Dragon Rend does not work on him in Sovngarde, by the way. So you start fighting him in any way you want, because it's your character, your rules. Once you do enough damage to him, he will basically start chanting in dragon speech, and it will start to heal him again. He'll be invulnerable to damage as well, but it's a slow process. What you can do is you can more or less take the weapon that you had forged at the Skyforge, the one that's made out of Dragon Priest masks, the one that is infused with Alduin's own power, and based on what you made it into, because being that it was made from the Skyforge for you, you could have made it a kind of sword or a polearm. Yeah, let's say polearms exist in this version of Skyrim. That would be good. But, any kind of weapon, basically, that can be used by the player, you could have forged. So, basically, you take that weapon, you stab Alduin, it breaks through his invincibility barrier, wounding him greatly. He will, in a scripted action, kind of try to run away. But keep in mind that Dragon Rend is still on him, so he's crawling on the ground, trying to go down the throat of the world, down the path you came up. Parthenax will land and basically get in his way and smack into him. And so Alduin will come flying back into the battlefield, leave a big skid mark. A bunch of Parthenax's allies will just will land on the various sides, and they'll breathe, they'll go Yol, and just breathe like a ring of fire around to stop Alduin from going in any other direction. So Alduin's right there with you. Alduin will have half healed or more, depending on how long it took you to break through his barrier. We're going to assume he gets at least a quarter of his health back minimum. Either way, you fight him. Alduin is more desperate. He does some weird, crazy shouts where he basically summons minions, dragon priests. He pulls out all the stops, okay? But ultimately, he dies there. And what happens is, instead of his soul being absorbed, you see his soul going up into the sky. Obviously, because you can't absorb Alduin's soul. and then everyone rejoices. And there's a reason for all those dragons being around you when Paarthurnax thanks you, because Paarthurnax had a part to play in it, and all the dragons basically, you know, they fly around. They do. That was a nice little ending, and that is the end of Skyrim without DLCs. So in part 3, I will be talking about Dawnguard and Dragonborn. I already gave you a little bit of a spoiler for Dragonborn as it is, but I hope you liked my little pointless piece of fan fiction as to how Skyrim could have been better, in my personal opinion. I will also be covering side quests and Daedric relics and things like that in future episodes as well. If you're interested in this kind of content, take a look at my social media links above. Do please either like or dislike, and please leave a comment. Next time, we'll be talking about Dawnguard and Dragonborn. Until then, I'll see y'all next time.